Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Next Step in Recovery free webinar. I'm Aileen Bandy of Align with Your Purpose, and I help people who are already embracing recovery to take the next step forward into their life of their dreams. And with me today, I am delighted to welcome two guests, author, speaker, and self-love advocate Crystalia Marie and Cynthia Gardner-O'Neill of Harmonics.org and Your Heart Ventures. And I'm going to ask these two ladies to introduce themselves to us. Can I start with you, Crystalia?
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. Thank you for inviting me to be here to share with your listeners. And a little bit about me, I did a lot of abusive relationships, should we say, at the earlier parts of my life, and it plays right into our conversation today about addictions. And from there, as I started understanding my need to take responsibility and look inside for what was going on, my journey led me to Reiki. And I was shown Reiki, and I dismissed it because of images. And I'll explain in a minute why I'm sharing this, because a few years later, I was given some images by another teacher, and I pretty much tried to dismiss it, except every time I would look at her images, I would start sobbing. And so that got me on the journey of paying a little more attention, but it took the universe giving me a lump the size of a golf ball in order for me to remove that lump with an image, and that got me on my journey. And now I draw symbols to heal, to help people heal their bodies, and I have over 500 of them. And as you mentioned, I'm also a self-love enthusiast because in my mind, it really is how we feel about ourselves that really helps us on our healing journey.
That's lovely, thank you. 500 images now, my goodness. I don't know where the last time was I spoke to you, but it wasn't, I don't think it was that many quite. So they're still coming regularly, are they?
That's correct.
Crystalia. And Cynthia, I know you unfortunately can't be with us on camera with your computer issues, but at least we can hear you. So would you please like to just give us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Aileen. And I am Cynthia Gardner O'Neill, and I am the founder of the Center for Loving Consciousness and creator of a program and courses called Harmonics. And that's harmonizing the heart, and the reason why I've been in that place of loving consciousness and the heart and everything is due to my background, the way I grew up, the trauma I went through, and yes, during that time, I also was around a lot of addiction. We're also talking about, there's addiction not only with alcohol and drugs, but also sex, things like that. I grew up where I was. Went through when I was 11 years old until I was around 15, 16, where I was raped and sexually abused all those years. And it definitely was something that was an addiction. And during that time, there was drugs and alcohol that was always involved in the people around me. And I had to find my way out. And there were certain aspects that actually helped me know myself better, know my truth better, and it came from the heart. And the more I learned about my heart, the more I understood myself more, and the more I loved myself more, and the more it took me into a place of my truth. And I didn't want to escape life anymore. I wanted to participate, and I wanted to make a difference in this world. And I've been recently, I'm a wilderness outfitter also. So nature is truly a remedy for our wellness. And when we speak about symbols and everything, one of the things I've learned about the heart is it's in the resonance, our love, in the resonance of the golden ratio, which is in all of life, that frequency that creates the patterns of life. And so I always speak of love being the thread that sews the patterns of life, because if there wasn't any love, nothing would exist without love. We wouldn't have the patterns of life. We would have muck, and actually the earth wouldn't be a round circle. We wouldn't have the patterns in the in nature. and just nothing would exist. So know that we are all guided by love, and all things are created from love as love. So, and by knowing that, this is the things we'll be talking about today, of course, of how we do overcome those addictions that take us out of participating in life, and know that it's so much more fun and wonderful to be a part of life, and it's the greatest high that you could ever have.
Thanks, Cynthia. That's lovely. Yes, we could just carry on from there, couldn't we? There's so much to talk about. And I'm glad that you mentioned about nature and your current experience. I know you do this outfitting in the wilderness, and it sounds like great fun. And getting back to nature is one of the tools that we can use to help us connect with that sense of something that's bigger than ourselves. So thank you for mentioning that, and thanks, Crystalia. I'm glad to see you've managed to get back in. I saw you. These hangouts are great fun, aren't they? People drop off and jump back in all the time, and we just keep going. So that's really good to see you back there. And thank you for everyone who's joining us, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching live today, or whether it's a replay that you're watching. Thank you for taking the time to join us and find out a little bit more about the next step in recovery. And I'd like to just start the actual webinar by doing a short grounding and centering meditation. So if you are not listening to this as you're driving a car or anything else, that could do any damage, then just please have a little quick stretch, maybe get rid of some tension in your shoulders, just sit comfortably and uncross your legs and arms. And we're just going to start with a very short centering meditation by focusing on the breath. So I'd like you just become aware of where your breath is coming from and going to. Is it already good and relaxed? Is it deep? Or is it perhaps a little more shallow and ragged? If you've been running around today, maybe it's a little bit ragged and shallow. And just breathe in through your nose. Follow the breath down into your lungs. And then exhale for slightly longer than your in-breath was. And as you're exhaling, imagine that you're exhaling all the concerns of the day, all the worries, all the things on your to-do list that haven't got done yet. Just breathe in deeply and let them all go. Exhale them. And on your next in-breath, take your breath down into your heart space and follow it down your body, down your legs, down to the bottom of your feet, through the floor where you're sitting, or if you're outside, through the ground. Take it right down through the rock beneath the building you're sitting in, all the way down, all through the different layers of rock, right into the center of Mother Earth. And when you get to that central place, I want you to imagine in the middle of the space there is a beautiful crystal. And I want you to imagine that the roots you've sent down from your feet are going to just move forward and wrap around that gorgeous crystal and really feel anchored there, right in the center of the planet, and supported by Mother Earth's love. And then come back up those tendrils, those roots, those however you like to see them. Come back up through all of the layers of rock, through the topsoil, into the bottom of your feet, up through your body and into your heart space again. And then take your attention up above your head, up to your higher self, to your higher power, to the universe, to God, to Source, to Spirit. And imagine from that higher place there is a beam of pure white light, cleansing light coming down, in through the top of your head, through your crown chakra, and coming down through your face, your throat, down to your heart space, where it will pool into the energy that's come from Mother Earth and your own unconditional love from your own heart space. And as you are breathing, with every out-breath, I'd like you just to expand your own field of energy out a little bit further, so out beyond your own physical body first, just a few feet out. And with your next out-breath, take it out a little further to take in the room that you're sitting in, or the space, the area where you're sitting at the moment. And then expand it further out to take in the whole building or town that you are currently in, or the area if you're in the countryside. Take it further out, expand it further to perhaps your county, your state, your island, depending where you are. And then take it out to encompass the whole globe. And as you're doing this, just send your own feelings of unconditional love to each of the living beings within your energy field now. Just do that for a couple of breaths. Now I invite you to come back into your own physical body, wherever you're sitting. And just slowly, when you're ready, open your eyes. You might want to have a drink of water like I just did there. Okay, and I'd like to just get started now. Thank you all for being with me on that meditation. That was a lovely connecting feeling there. And I'd like to just explain a little bit about what is this next step in recovery. And to answer that, I want to share a little bit about my own story of addiction to alcohol and my recovery from that addiction. I drank too much for too long and got to the point where I just didn't have a stop switch, a cut-off switch. I didn't know what that meant. And it took me to places that I would never have gone to otherwise. And it took me to very dark places in my life, which are not pleasant to remember, and a real sense of desperation, really, that I didn't know how I was going to make any shift from that place. I had become addicted to this substance without realizing it, and it's just a very, very difficult thing to come to terms with. I was in denial for a long, long time. On the surface of it, everything looked probably okay from a distance. I had a successful teaching career. I had a loving husband. I had 3 gorgeous children. On the outside, it all looked fine. And inside, I was just dying. And I got to the point where I just couldn't wait, for that point in the day when I would allow myself to have that drink so I would feel better. What is it about this? Why do we do this? Why do people take these substances, whether it's alcohol or drugs, or on a different level it could be chocolate or something else like that, or like Cynthia mentioned, addiction to sex. Why do we get involved in these things? Usually because we want to feel better. And I didn't get out of that that place of wanting to feel better without having the alcohol. It made me feel better, and it worked brilliantly until it didn't. And then, as you know, you need more and more, and then it takes you to different places that you don't really want to to be in. And my sort of turning point came when I loved my children dearly. I'd always wanted to have children. And my turning point came when I woke up one morning in bed, came to more like it, and realized that I had no recollection of how I'd got home, and realized that I had actually driven home with my children in the back of the car. I was very lucky. They were okay. No one was hurt. They were safe, but it could have been very different. And that was when I, started to. That's when I took the first step and made a phone call that got me started on my journey to recovery. And it's been a while now. It's been over 14 years, and I am in recovery now. And I see people all the time who are also in recovery, perhaps a little earlier on, and they've maybe got to the point where they're starting to see a difference in their lives. They've shifted, they've put down the drink, or they've stopped taking the drugs, and they have begun to get their life back together. And it's a wonderful thing to see people grow and get better. And then there comes a point where many of them sort of stop and say, okay, so I got sober, or I stopped using. What's next? What's next in my life? Is there nothing more to life than this? And so this is really where the idea for the next step came in. I've been working on the idea of helping people find their life purpose for quite some time, as many of you know. And for me, being able to embrace my own story and my own recovery has helped me get the clarity to see that that's where I want to help people. And so if you've got to that point, or if you know someone who's got to that point in recovery, who is embracing wellness rather than being lost in that mire of addiction, and wants to make more changes in their life, but doesn't know where to start, then that's what this is for. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, the next step. And the place that we're going to start with today is about awakening your inner wisdom and trusting its messages. And I see we've lost Cristalia again, but I'm sure she's going to come back in there. But Cynthia, if you could maybe just pop in there, and do you have any thoughts on what I've told you about so far?
Yeah, well, I love that you brought up, there came this time recently that you started realizing all of who you are and started talking about these things that you've hidden for so long. But how wonderful it was for you to begin to express that, and it became easier because the wisdom to know who you are started coming out. When we begin to know who we are, we start speaking our truth about who we are, what the challenges were in our lives. Doesn't mean that they are the same challenges we're having today, but it's like accepting it and saying, this is who I was then, and it wasn't truly who I was, who I am though today.
Yeah.
And that we actually move into a place. I was born Cynthia, but when I remember going to kindergarten, and there, everybody called me Cindy. And everybody wanted me to spell, and this is about wisdom and getting to know ourselves, and about how we shift and change. So I'm going to share the story with you. And everybody wanted me to spell my name Cindy. And as a little child, I didn't even know how to spell, but I knew my name was Cynthia for some reason. I used to say to everybody, and I don't know how I knew this, I would always spell my name Cyndi when I was called Cindy. So I grew up being Cindy, all right?
Oh.
And it wasn't until the last few years, I think over the last 3-4 years ago, I started calling myself Cynthia, introducing myself as Cynthia. So I went from being the Cindy girl, okay, and I grew into becoming more who I am, which is Cynthia. So I have a lot of people ask me who've known me all those years where I was Cindy, and they said, why did you change your name? And I said, I didn't change my name. I grew into my name. And I found out my name Cynthia meant bringer of light, moonlight, starlight, princess of the moon, goddess of the moon in different languages, German
Uh-huh.
and Lakota and, the different things, but it was all about light. And I
Hmm.
thought, that's what I feel like that I am. So,
Hmm.
yes, when we become more, we are all growing into our true wisdom, the
Hmm.
wisdom of who we are. And the easier life becomes when we become present with who we are. And when we talk about addiction, we've grown up where we get punished for being who we are.
Mm.
And I think self-worth and valuing who we are and all those things becomes we start we've been punished for being who we are, and it doesn't feel good to be who we are.
Yeah.
So what do?
Yeah.
We go to find some way where we disconnect from who we are.
That's
And
right.
that's where I
Yeah.
do believe the drinking and drugs and the disconnect come in. And I feel a lot of people want to be somebody else or connect with someone else, and a lot of times, even smoking cigarettes and the drugs and the addiction, the alcohol, come with wanting to be in commonality, in communion with people. And
That's right.
so that's one of the social things that happens. So yeah.
Yeah, it's about feeling a part of something, isn't it? And we get
Yes.
into these things because we want to be a part of a particular group that does that sort of thing, that drinks or smokes cigarettes or whatever it happens to be. And also, I think a lot of it is to do with just wanting generally to feel better in the
Yes.
moment, to feel that there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a very basic human instinct, is wanting to feel better and looking for something that will make me feel better. But you're right, when we have all of these things going on and we don't feel good enough, which is at the bottom, I think, of a lot of the issues behind addiction, then we do indulge because it takes that edge off. It takes anything like that away. And I know Crystalia has had some trouble getting on. Are you with us now, Crystalia? Would you like
I,
to join in?
I am with you now. I think. Can you both hear me?
Sure, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
Yes, I just know you
good.
have no video, but that's not a problem.
Yeah, I decided that might have been what the problem was. So I said, shut it off, see if that helps, because I kept
Right.
dropping.
Yeah, not to worry, not to worry. So
Yeah.
we were
So
just talk. Go ahead.
I was listening to what both of you were sharing, and for me, my biggest addiction issues became part of just trying to fit in.
Mhm.
And in the work environment, it was a way to succeed and actually became part of, if you wanted to fit in and be part of the group that was going to get promoted and all of that, you had to go drink with them all.
Right.
and
Yeah.
and that was a huge part for me. And another piece of besides alcoholism, for me, became workaholism. So I kind of shifted from one to the other over time, and
Mm.
trying to fit in, trying to get that promotion by working. And at one point in my life, literally, I billed 110 billable hours for 1 week.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, I got an award for that and got fired the following month from the same company.
Oh dear. Well, there's a lesson in there somewhere, isn't there?
There
Yeah.
definitely was lots of lessons in there, but yeah, it's like that whole idea of trying to fit in. It's a huge, really, to me, alcoholism or any kind of addiction really has mostly to do with our self-esteem and our self-love and self-worth, all of that.
Yes, and I know you talk about that a lot. You really do, and it's not that it's so difficult to start putting things down. It's staying stopped, isn't it? That's the issue, and that's where very often the 12-step programs come in, and they are marvelous. I have no issue. I have no wish to do them down at all. 12-step programs have been a lifeline for me and for many people that I know. But I'm just talking about wanting to move on from that and to move into a place where, as Cynthia was saying, you can become who you're supposed to be, and that involves doing things like loving yourself, learning to love yourself, dealing with your self-esteem issues. And I think the place I'd like to start today is also with finding that spiritual connection with something that's bigger than you.
Yes.
And I think that's really crucial, and it certainly was for me. I was, to use a cliche, spiritually bankrupt when I was in the midst of my addiction. I had no idea what that connection with a higher power or a higher being might be. And I had certainly said goodbye to the God that I was brought up with, a long time ago. But it came in my recovery, that awareness, that connection, and that belief that there is something bigger than me that I now feel is part of me and that I'm part of. It feels like it's all one. And it's a very personal thing, so I don't wish to impose my own view of this on anyone. But I think it's really important to try and make this connection with something else that you can regard as a spiritual side to yourself. And it could be your higher self. You can call it your higher self, your inner guidance. And if we learn to have this connection and to develop it, then we can trust it and trust its messages. For me, it's a bit like it's your soul speaking to you. And we all have these messages. We're all aware of, that little twinge in your stomach or the tightness in your throat or in your chest when something's not quite right. And I know many people who just ignore these little physical messages in your physical body that are telling you something. But I think if it's a great place to start, and we started off with a little meditation, just a short one. I didn't want to take too much time up, but just because breathing is a wonderful place to start, and becoming aware of how you breathe every day. How do you breathe when you are relaxed? How do you breathe when you're in a stressful situation? How do you breathe when you're sitting in a traffic jam? How do you breathe when you're in a queue at the checkout, in the supermarket, or in a line at the bank, or anything like that? How do you breathe? It's whenever you're forced in your daily life to stop, it's an opportunity to just check in with your breathing and think, okay, could I maybe, change this, do it more deliberately? And one of the things that I have found really helpful is just to raise your level of awareness around these things, around breathing, and around connecting with your higher self or your inner guidance. And I talked about, I mentioned in some of the things I wrote on the event pages on Facebook and Google Plus that there are 4 keys to connecting with who you really are. And these 4 keys, 2 of them I've just mentioned: breathe in the moment, connect with your higher self. The third one I'll mention is explore, and that's explore the story that you've been telling yourself, or it can be exploring your gifts as well, exploring what you already have to offer. And the last one is to slow down, and that's all about being mindful. And when I say mindful, that's mindful as one word with one L, not having a mind full of stuff, like we often are in the day. And that, connects with nature and so on. So I'd like to invite Cynthia or Crystalia, both of you, just to, join in with anything you'd like to say about any of those keys, breathing, connecting with your higher self, exploring your story, and slowing down.
I think breathing is a really big key part, and for me, I actually set a timer, and every 30 minutes I have a timer that goes off just to remind me to actually breathe and just center myself for a moment.
Really?
Breathing is a really easy thing to do. We all do it,
Yeah. Yeah.
but doing it consciously really can make a difference to shift our day and also to help us get more clear and more conscious about what's going on around us.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really great. That's a good idea to put a timer on. I never thought of that one. How about you, Cynthia? Do you have a
Well,
timer?
and I don't have a timer, but I use sticky notes, and I love to invite people to use sticky notes or, put on a timer on there. But the breath is so important. Of course, it's automated. It's our autonomic nervous system, and of course, what affects the autonomic nervous system is our heart, and the breath actually feeds our heart with oxygen, right? So,
Right.
and that's like that constant flow of energy. And what's really interesting about the breath too is, the breath is when we're breathing fully and we're taking those nice deep breaths. And I suggest, through the nose and then out through the mouth with an end of the day breath. Just relax into it and not trying to control it, because too many people, I always say, stop trying to control life and start living it. And they do say, dis-ease and pain cannot live in an oxygenated body. So many of us are not breathing fully. We take for granted that we breathe because it is automated. And, I tell a story about, the 3 3 3s. They say that, it's 3 months without food and a human can die, and 3 weeks without water and a human can die, but 3 minutes without breath and a human dies. And which one do we pay the most attention to?
Food.
Yeah, food. Most of the time we're paying attention to food. Then water. Water's always in the center. And then our breath. And it should be the other way around. It should be your breath, then water, then food. And but I always love to say, love more than food is what nourishes you. So nourishing your heart with your breath is so important. And also when we breathe, when we breathe in alkalinity and oxygen. And when we breathe out acidity. And then also the toxins and everything. And they say 70% of the breath, 70% of toxins come out through the breath when we're breathing fully, when we're cleaning, because the breath actually cleanses and harmonizes and puts us in homeostasis. But many people, we're so uncomfortable with ourselves because we do not breathe fully. We do not take that time. And that's why I always suggest, because a lot of my clients say to me, I just can't remember to do that, because that's the most important thing that I say to people. Even, they did a study about stretching, and they wanted to know whether stretching was good for you before or after working out or whatever. Well, during this study, they found out stretching, either way didn't work for people. What was working for people is when they went to stretch, people would breathe into the area that they were stretching. And those people who were stretching and not breathing into the area or whatever, they actually harmed themselves. So you could actually wake up in the morning and take time in bed, and breathe into your body, breathe into certain parts in your body. And guess what you're going to do? You're going to just do more for your body to get your day started. And you're going to start off balanced in your alkalinity, in your pH balance, and you'll start off in homeostasis. So you won't be climbing out of bed and those QLs, those back muscles, all of a sudden won't pull out on you. So your breath is so important to everything and to your heart. And the last thing I'll say is breathe deep into your heart and love yourself more today than you did yesterday.
Oh, that's lovely. Thanks, Cynthia. That's really interesting. Yes, I'd forgotten about that alkalinity acidity part to it. So thanks for reminding us. And also breathing into where you're stretching. Yes, I know my yoga teacher is very big on that. She, as we do a new pose or whatever it is, it's always directing the breath to where you might feel any tension or tightness, and it does work. The first time I thought, why would I breathe into my back? But it's a very effective technique, and so thank you for explaining it a bit more. How about you, Crystalia? What's your Oh, we had your bit on breath, didn't we? So how about connecting? Sorry, connecting with your higher self or your inner guidance. Do you have any tips for us about that?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I personally do, and I recommend to all of my clients, is to create a process for meditation. But it doesn't mean sitting down cross-legged and all of that. It's getting quiet. So it's not necessary that you have to. I personally meditate 20 minutes a day, twice a day, but it's not like you have to do it in that kind of a format so much as that whole idea of taking that moment, getting centered, getting clear. And I like what Wayne Dyer said on one of his recordings quite a while ago, and that was, you can even meditate while the light is red when you're sitting there, because somebody's going to beep the horn to let you know if you're not moving. Now, I wouldn't recommend that though without putting the car in park, so your
Okay.
foot doesn't slip off the pedal. But
Hmm.
going out in nature and enjoying nature is a great way for us to connect. And then I want to say my favorite way to connect though is to actually journal. So I like to journal and ask for guidance, and even guidance about what my life purpose is, all the way to a simple question I might have for the day, or where do I take my business, or my how do I help my clients in a better way. And I literally start out and invite my guides in to help, and then pose my question, and then I do automatic writing. So for people that haven't done that, you write whatever comes to you, no matter how silly it seems, and gradually the automatic part will happen.
Yeah, it's a little bit like free writing when you're in a creative writing class, isn't it? You just, that just keep writing. It doesn't matter what you write, it will come eventually. And I'm sure that part of the physical act of writing, it's been shown in some studies that it actually helps your brain to engage and make that connection. And obviously, with you, it makes the connection through to your guides or your
Right,
spirit helpers.
right. And I also do it sometimes with now lots of people will tell me never do this, and it really works well for me. And that is, and maybe it's because I've been in front of a computer and a keyboard my entire adulthood, but I can actually shut off the monitor to my computer with a Word document up, put my hands on the keyboard, go into a meditative state, and my fingers will just take off. And the messages I get are so profound that
Oh,
but I
wow.
type at like 120 words a minute, and so for me to sit and write sometimes is so slow. I think I lose more than I do if I let my fingers fly on the keyboard.
Well, you're certainly going to capture everything that comes through then, aren't you? That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I filter it less when I'm doing that than I would when I'm
Mm.
writing. Sometimes we tend to filter what's
Oh,
coming
yeah,
through if we're writing.
that's
So,
right.
so everyone has to find, I think this is the key for me, the last I'm going to share in this piece,
Hmm.
is the key is to find for yourself what works for you. And
Yes.
not just, I mean, maybe something you're going to hear today is what will work for you, but if that's not it and you're drawn to something else, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. You're doing
Awesome.
exactly what is perfect for you.
Exactly. Yes, of course. Yeah, and that's the whole point of having these chats, isn't it? To sort of bring to people a variety of different ways to do this, because we're all different and we all connect in different ways, and what
Yeah.
works for one person might not work for the other. But it's great to hear even new ideas today. I've never heard of actually typing and going into meditation. I'll have to try that. I have a feeling I might just type gobbledygook because my touch typing is not that brilliant, but never mind. I'll give it a go. and you and you mentioned there also, and I just want to sort of move on to this idea of connecting in nature. I think many of us who live in cities and towns, we forget how important and what a boost it is for our system and just for our psyche to actually spend a little time in nature whenever we can. We weren't meant to live in concrete and brick and tarmac and all the rest of it, were we? We were meant to live in a natural setting. I mean, biologically, I'm talking about thousands
Yep.
and millions of years ago, and just to think that you might go for a whole day and not even touch anything that's natural, except perhaps what you eat. And that might not be that natural anymore
Good
either,
luck with that too, right?
That's another conversation to have. But you know, a way we can do that, you know, if you work in an office in the middle of the city, you can take a break and go for a walk in the park in your lunch break, even if you only have an hour. Or I mean, no, you don't get more than that usually. You know, 45 minutes, 1 hour. You've got time to have a quick walk to wherever the nearest green space is in the city or the town that you live, you know, and have a walk, buy some water. I'm lucky enough to live 5 minutes from a river here. I can just, when I've had too much of the computer, which happens, doesn't it, Crystalia? I can just, you know, I can just leave it and go for a walk, and then I'm by the river, I'm with the trees, and it's just lovely. I can even, if it's a nice day and it's not been raining, unlike today in the UK, I can even, you know, take my shoes off and walk on the grass, which is a lovely way to really feel grounded. But I know that Cynthia spends a lot of time taking people right into the wilderness. So tell us about the advantages of that, if you would, a little bit, Cynthia.
Yeah, well, I have a wilderness outfitting business here in Colorado, and I take people up into the West Elk Wilderness near Crested Butte, and on horseback. And I love working with horseback. I mean, I am putting together programs for hikers because they're, you know, that needs to be addressed too, you know, so people can walk into those areas and have that. But the horses are such a wonderful biofeedback tool, and also they're so connected and grounded. And you know, they use them a lot for, you know, it's called rhinotherapy, where they use it to help even children and even adults with cerebral palsy, autism, all kinds of things, because what it does is their movement is a natural movement that actually helps us relax in the neurotransmitters of the body and everything. And so, and I think it also has a lot to do with the earth energy. But I learned so much from a horse, and and the horses teach us so many things in nature because they are so one with nature. And as you were speaking, you know, when we first were introduced at the beginning, you kind of brought in some of the you know, and I even talked about the golden ratio, the symbols. You know, Crystalia, you know, she's really understands the symbolism of many things, and it is the oneness of all things of nature. And when we're in it, it teaches us so much more about who we are. And what a gorgeous place to just take some time and experience. And I just also want to add, when you're, you know, people who are in the concrete city, you know, or in where they can't escape into actual nature, know that having a painting or something that you can visualize on to take you away, that you can just escape, or even putting on those the different sounds, you know, because sound creates, you know, an experience. So just having an experience with, maybe you might have something that's birds, you know, in your office, that you turn on your birds for a little while and they're flying around in your room, and you know you can hear them and everything, but do you really have to see them? And then having a picture there that of your favorite place that you felt so tranquil in, you know, it just really makes a difference, because also there's those patterns of life, the golden ratio inside there. And when we have that experience with that, there's something it does to our DNA. It transforms it, because it is the energy of love. So many people don't know that they have everything they need within them. And that's why when we talk about meditating in your own way and deciding what that is to you, you know, I talk about the heartbeat. The heartbeat is the signature sound of you. Every experience you've ever had in every lifetime that you've ever had is you. And no one can do it like you. No one can have a heartbeat or the experiences like you do, just like Crystalia just said earlier. So, you know, when we talk about addiction and talk about self-worth, and we were talking about, you know, being punished for being who we are, the other part is, you know, there's over 260 ways to do the dishes, and they're all right. Okay? But how many times do I had a class where I was teaching about, being an individual and really loving yourself. And I told that story, and there was a man in there, and he has 4 sons. And he raised his hand and he said, "No, there's not. There's only my way." That is an old way that we've come from, that authoritarian way of being, and we are changing in this world to where we're honoring each other and accepting each other just as we are.
Yeah.
And I think that's also what's transforming the consciousness of addiction. And the more that we have people like you and I, and Christelia, and all of us that are coming in here, that we want to share and teach people to that it's okay to be you. It's okay to do it your way. It's okay for you to, just because you heard someone say you meditate this way doesn't mean that works for you. And so I'm loving this conversation here. So, hopefully that's helping people out there to look at themselves and say, man, I do, your contribution, your heartbeat, you being here means you're supposed to be, and that you do have something to contribute to this world. You're not out there alone, and we are here. You have commonality with people, and that's why we're having this conversation today.
That's
so
right.
That's reaching your higher self, right?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Cynthia. That's lovely. And I hope one day I'll get to come on one of your horseback adventures into the mountains. They sound absolutely fabulous. And the last thing that I really wanted to touch on was the idea of exploring your story. And when I say exploring your own story, it means really talking about whatever your life story happens to be. But it's also maybe looking at the story that's kept you stuck where you were in your addiction. And I don't know if you're watching this, where you are personally in your own road to recovery, but wherever you are, or whether it's just you're here for interest and you have a loved one who is in recovery from addiction from something, then it's worth looking at the way that you talk to yourself about this, the language that you use, and what story you're telling yourself that keeps you in a place which perhaps doesn't serve you. And it's again about raising your own awareness on this and bringing it into your conscious awareness and thinking, okay, I've been talking about that for so long. I've been keeping myself stuck there for quite a while. Maybe it's time to change, And I think that's a really interesting one to look at, because we can get very much embroiled in our own stories because we tell them all the time, whether we're telling them to ourselves silently or we're telling them to other people, and they're kind of an excuse as to why we haven't done the various things. They are worth looking at, and because they can always be changed. I hear Christelia giggling there. Come on, what does it want to say?
Well, I was laughing because you're absolutely right. We can really mess ourselves up with those stories, and the story I shared earlier in the corporate world of really buying into that whole idea that I was never going to succeed if I didn't fit in and drink with the group, and if you want to buy into that, it can really be a dramatic thing. But what I discovered when I finally broke free of the whole thing was that my career actually skyrocketed quite dramatically after I walked away from that situation. But I was so bad with my story. You two will love this. I literally said, well, I have to change this drinking thing after my blackout situation. So I heard you talk about yours. Um, and so what I started doing was I would walk into the bar where everybody was, where we were all going to be drinking together, and I would tip the bartender $20 to serve me tonic with no vodka in it. So I could fit in and I'd actually like everyone else, and no one knew that I wasn't drinking. And maybe I'd have like one drink in the evening, and that I never did the AA or any of those 12-step programs. That's actually how I quit. But I literally bought into my story to the degree that I had to do that. And when I finally basically came out and was real with myself and everyone
Mhm.
else, my career actually skyrocketed. So, we forget sometimes that we buy into these stories, and it's actually very, very detrimental to what we really are here to do and be and enjoy our lives fully, and shine our light brightly. And I also want to add one more thing, and that is a lot of people get hung up on what is their purpose. Your purpose is, in my definition, it's all about being who you are.
Mm.
Period. Not like we all have to be these best-selling authors and we all have to be out there with special tools. Shine your light every day and be who you are, and that's living life on purpose. If there's more, it'll show up, but don't like fret about it and make that your news story to tell
Mm. Right.
that
Yeah,
you don't know what your purpose is.
that's great advice. Yeah, thanks, Cristalia. I would agree with you. Yeah, it is all about being who you are and be able to express that honestly, authentically, and to whoever's around you, to whoever you're closest to. Start there, start small, start where you are. It doesn't,
Right,
like you
right.
say, you may have a book in you, that's great. Why
Hmm.
not? Let's write a
Right.
book too. Or we may want to become, speakers in front of thousands of people, or even just in front of 10 people, or a few hundred people. Whatever happens, it will happen in its own time once you start to be true to yourself and you feel that you can actually express who you are and that you are connecting with people. So that connection thing, it's all, for me, it's about connecting with your inner self and getting that guidance from the part of you that knows what your purpose is, the part of you that knows who you really are, that wants you to express it. And it's about getting to that and being that more authentically, every day, in every way that we can, in all aspects of our lives.
Right. And I
So
like what Cynthia's doing with the horses, so I'm ready to come visit and check out this horse camp thing too.
yeah, hey, we should make a
Yeah.
date.
Well, I have a Wild Women Wilderness Horseback Retreat, where I bring a group of women
Perfect.
up there.
Yeah.
Yes, and it is really phenomenal because we're up at around 10, 11,000 feet. I also do massage up there, and I teach about the
Oh.
nature and the oneness and the loving consciousness and all those
Mm.
kind of things to help you find yourself and to let go what interferes or interferes with who you
Mm.
are. And when you're out in nature, what happens is you begin to feel again. No feeling,
Yeah.
no healing,
Yeah.
and you begin to feel what is yours and what is someone else's. And that's what's
Yeah.
really great also about the horses. Because the horses feel you, and they respond to how you're feeling. If you're feeling fear,
Uh-huh.
you can tell by the horse, it knows that you're feeling fear. And also nature does too. I always let people know when we get started, it's about I'm in harmony with nature and nature's in harmony with me. That we put ourselves in harmony in our hearts as we begin our trip.
Mm.
Because everybody, even in life, when we are in a place of fear, we put ourselves in a place of being where a predator's going to come looking for us. We put
Mm-hmm.
ourselves in that energy that we are prey.
Yeah.
And that's what
Victim.
happens out in nature. It's just an automatic thing. It's not like, anybody that nature truly wants to hurt something, but it's a part of the energy of life. That when there's things that aren't living fully, being who they are and living in their abundance and everything,
Mm-hmm.
life says, all right, it's time to do something different. And so up there in nature with the horses and all those things, you have time to really get to know yourself and feel again. And that's the big thing I
Mm.
wanted to just bring up, is that feeling. And when you
Mm.
feel who you are, as we started out earlier too, Aileen, you were talking about how you've become understood yourself more and know yourself more, how much easier it is to express yourself,
That's right.
to be who you are. You know, life becomes easier. Same thing with you, Cristalia, when you were talking about all of a sudden you things became easier after you stepped away from the person that you weren't to become more of who you are.
Mhm.
And I have a great saying here, and I'll think of it later, and I'll say that probably towards the end when it comes to me. But
Okay.
it's about, you know, letting go of what we don't know about ourselves, and to allow, you know, us to become into this, getting to know the person that we really truly are. So that's, you know, and then the trust comes in. And that's the big thing, you know, with connecting with ourselves, is trusting ourselves. You know, if we don't trust ourselves, you know, that energy is going out there. I always say, you know, the heart is 60 times more amplified than any part of the body, and 5,000 times more electromagnetic. So what we're putting out, we get back 100 times plus. So once I started, I remember someone asking me a question about trust, because I am a very trusting person. And they said, do you trust everyone and everything? And I had to think about it for a little bit. And then I came back and said, you know, it's not that I trust everyone and everything. I trust myself. I trust that I'll make wise decisions of where to go. I trust wise decisions of who I want to be with. And you know what? My heart tells me that.
Right.
That's
Yep.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's all
Very
about
good
trusting the
point.
messages. Sorry, Dalia. Go.
I was going to say that's such a good point that
Mm.
Cynthia's bringing up there.
Yeah, it is. It's fast. It's really important, and I hope you find the quotation to share with us a little bit later. Well,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just very aware that we're getting towards we've nearly gone an hour, and I don't want to. I'm very aware of people's. I want to be mindful of people's time, and I want to thank everyone who's watching live for joining us, and thank also anyone who's watching the replay. You know, I hope that this has given you some ideas and that you've enjoyed our time together today. I've really enjoyed this conversation. We've touched on some really important things that, you know, anyone can do to take the next step on your road to recovery, if you're in recovery, or to help someone that you know take that next step. And trust your intuition, trust yourself, as Cynthia's just said, by connecting with your inner self, your inner guide, your higher self, and to enjoy that awakening of your own inner wisdom that you maybe felt, I hope, a little bit during that meditation you did. You know, imagine how much easier your life will be when you can rely totally on this inner wisdom, and you haven't got to sort of second guess yourself all the time. You know, you don't dither over decisions anymore. It's a muscle that you have to develop over time. It doesn't happen overnight, but the more you do it and the more you raise your awareness around this, you know, the easier it will get. You know, your connection with your inner wisdom, it will support you through whatever life brings you, and you'll be able to live your own life with ease and grace, you know. But it's up to each one of you to take that responsibility and do the work yourself, you know. As nobody else can do it for you. It's a bit like that saying about exercise, you know. Nobody else, you can't hire someone to do your push-ups for you. You've got to do them yourself, and it's very similar. You know, you can't hire someone to meditate for you. You can't hire someone to, you know, consciously connect with your higher self. It's something you have to do personally. And you can't learn about the relationships with those patterns in nature that Cynthia was talking about, or the sacred geometry, which is fascinating and we haven't had time to even touch on. Or how a more conscious appreciation of all these things, you know, it connects you and it serves you and helps your own spiritual growth. You know, you can't ask somebody else to do your yoga practice for you, you know, much as you might want to some days. So, you know, I hope that this has helped you explore a little bit what life can be like in recovery, moving forward from the horror of addiction and into who you truly are. And I would like to tell you about a workshop that I'm putting together, which is going to go into these all of these different aspects in much more detail. And it's imagine today is a bit like a taster menu, if you like, at a restaurant, and the workshop is the full, you know, all-day buffet. It's going to be a live workshop from the comfort of your own home, and it will take place on Friday the 17th of July. It's going to start at 12 noon Eastern Time, which is 5 o'clock in the afternoon here in the UK. and it will last about 4 hours. There'll be 4 hours of live um, conversation and workshops and teaching and learning about accessing your inner guidance, about meditating. There's going to be another conversation with another friend about recovery, about getting more out of life without lapsing into obsession. We've got Cynthia will be there as well, talking about exploring your relationship with sound, with music, and with nature, which is right up her street. And as well as the live modules on that day, you'll also get access over the 2 weeks that follow to another 10 modules of content from experts in the field, who'll take you into looking into the deeper into the subject of connection with your higher self. That will be with Roger Marsh, a spiritual life coach from California. Cristalia will be telling us more about the importance of self-love and why that's so foundational for the kind of thing we've been talking about. We mentioned the power of your story, and there'll be a whole module on that with author and speaker Rhonda Del Boccio, who's going to be talking about the power of your own story and how you can tap into your own hero's journey and use that to help you move forward. There's also a module on attending to your physical environment, whether that's your home office or your work environment, wherever it happens to be, using the art of feng shui with a lady called Sherry Diamond, who's a flow doctor. And Cynthia, could you just mute perhaps a little bit of
I'm sorry.
Background, okay, so I can finish telling people about the other modules. And with Cynthia, we'll be also talking about, as I said, sound, music, and nature, and with another lovely intuitive healer, Misa Hopkins, who's also a friend of Cristalia's. You'll learn how to discover your own intuitive spiritual gifts, and that will help you to feel a deeper sense of connection with who you really are. So 4 live modules on July the 17th, followed by another 10 that you'll get access to over the 2 weeks that follow that. And then there'll be a final Q&A live session, tying it all together and creating a blueprint for you to integrate all of these new practices, whatever you choose, because as we said before with Cristalia, there's no wrong way to do this. It's just people have different preferences, or whatever you would like to look at and integrate into your daily life will be the focus of the final call at the end of the month. And all the way through, we're going to focus on integrating these practices into everyday life. Along with the workshop, you also get live weekly calls for support and celebration for a whole year. That's weekly calls with everybody else who's going to be in the program, and you will be able to access these calls every year. You'll be able to bring your questions, your concerns, your insights, your breakthroughs, and your celebrations. And I would love for any of you who are here to join us on that workshop. You can go to the URL, which is right here at the bottom of my screen, alignwithyourpurpose.com/blog/next step, to get all the details about the workshop. But really, it's an opportunity for you to move into the next step in your own recovery and to move into being more of who you really are through developing this connection. This workshop I've actually called Awakening Your Inner Wisdom, 4 Keys to Connecting with Who You Really Are. And there are some bonuses as well, which I just want to quickly mention, which is a one-on-one life purpose discovery session with me. You get 3 months free membership to my Path to Purpose membership site, which has lessons and live calls every week as well, and access to a Facebook group, and also a bonus audio, an interview with Jack Canfield. And I may find some more bonuses to put on there as well, but at the moment that's what we have there. And the value of all of these, that's like 15 modules altogether, the value of the transformation that you're going to feel when you've experimented with these different things that you're going to learn and moved into your more into your being your own authentic self is priceless, really. I mean, I've put a number on it, which is a value of $397. But because I want as many people as possible to be able to join us, the regular price will be $197. But for those of you on this webinar, if you act quickly, you can get the early bird special, which is only $97. And that includes all of the bonuses. And that price holds until the 15th of July. So on the 15th of July, the early bird flies away, as I like to say. And I hope that some of you will join us in the live workshop on the 17th. In the meantime, I'd like to just say a big thank you to both Cynthia and Crystalia for joining me here today. They're both contributing to the workshop, which is partly why I've had them come on here and chat with us. But I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope that all of you have too. And if you have any comments, please put them in the I believe we have the comments on the event page in Google Plus, or maybe you're watching in YouTube and there's a place to put the comments underneath. I will be looking at them. I'll get back to you on if there are any questions. And I'd just like to say thank you very much and invite Cynthia and then Crystalia just to give their parting thoughts.
Okay.
Is Cynthia there?
Yes, I am here now. Sorry about the noise. I thought I was muted and
not to worry.
Popping out. But here's what I'd love to end with. This is what I was talking about earlier. Maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything. Maybe it's about unbecoming everything that isn't really you, so you can be who you were meant to be in the first place.
That's lovely. Thank you. That's a great one. I'll have to write that down. Send it to me.
Yeah,
I love it.
We'll get it. It's in a meme, so I'll post it.
Oh, great, great. Put it on the event page if you don't mind.
Absolutely, I will do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So, yeah. So I think my thought that I'd like to leave the listeners with is to really tune into your own gut feelings about what what we've all shared, and pick and choose out of that what will work for you, and make one tiny step today toward changing your life. I think we tend to want to do everything, and we didn't learn to walk without first learning to push ourselves up and then to crawl and so on, and we fell on our butts a lot. And we tend to forget that. So I really encourage people to pick something and do some little step every day, and not beat ourselves up, but just love ourselves for exactly where we're at. And I also want to add that the package you've put together for the listeners here is phenomenal. I'm blown away by what you're offering for $97.
I'm in agreement. It's beautiful.
It is absolutely beautiful. So.
Well, I know there's such a lot of fantastic content, to come, and it will help people to be able to do it at their own pace, and then, come onto the live calls every week and just get some feedback and support. And it's an important part of moving forward, isn't it, in your own personal growth? So I really do encourage you to there is actually a link on the event page. I think it says official website or some such thing, or as I say, the URL on my just below me here today on the that you can see on the Hangout, which is alignwithyourpurpose.com/blog/next step, one word. And I hope to see many of you on the 17th. And thanks again, ladies, for joining me. It's been lovely, and thank you all for watching and for being here, whether you're on live or at the replay. It's a real pleasure to share this time with you, and I've really enjoyed it. So thanks, everyone, and that's all for today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ladies. Blessings to you all.
Bye.
Thank you. Blessings to you. Bye-bye.